Camera rolling.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about modern day discrimination. But before I think that we can really understand discrimination in modern day, we need to take it back a step and think when the main stage of discrimination first started. So before we do that, I want to talk about the 8 stages of genocide which happened in the Holocaust. But we're going to focus on 2. The first one is symbolism. Like Hitler made the Jews wear the Star of David because they're Jews. And the second one is separation. That's where it's us and them. And sorry, that's classification. Us and them, so for example, us and the KKK, us and ISIS, us Muslims, us Christians. So, in World War II, Hitler, after World War One, he blamed all of the problems on the Jews, and obviously he made an uprising and he started World War II. He separated the Jews from their families and he made them work, and if you couldn't work, they were all gassed, killed, and then put into mass graves. But one good thing came from the Holocaust, and that was that we would never forget. And us as a world said we would never forget, and every single year we have Holocaust Day where we remember this. So, today, I don't know if any of you know, but the refugee crisis is taking place. This is where families from areas in the Middle East flee to Europe for asylum. This is because all of the fighting and all of the war, and they just want safety. We welcomed them with open arms. But what's happening now is that mass migration has started, and because of this, we are struggling to cope with this migration. So we are having to put them in refugee camps. We are having to separate them from us. And I'm not saying this is the next genocide, but classification is taking place, where it's us and the refugees. So that's just one example of discrimination in the modern day. And the second example is in America. Most of you have heard of Trump, yes? Well, basically, Trump is an anti-Muslim fascist, and he, like Hitler, is blaming all of America's problems on the Muslims. Okay, so that's us and them. That is classification. Us Americans and them Muslims. And he is also doing symbolism. He is wanting to make Muslims have special signs on their passports to show that they are Muslims. I'm just saying that we need to be very careful in modern day, the way that our minds are manipulated. And I just want you to think about this in the future. Is there any questions?
Why do you feel so strongly about this topic?
Because it's so big and people are just brushing it over their head, and people think that it's different because it's Trump and he's wearing a suit, and really it doesn't matter. Like in other countries where people are being discriminated, they are terrorists and they are hated, just like for example the KKK. But just because he's wearing a suit, I don't think that it should be made any better that he is being discriminated. I think everyone should be equal.
How do you think we should how do you think we should how could we fix this?
I think the main thing is raising awareness. Like, I don't think if people knew before, like, the Trump elections, the things that he had planned and the way that it actually linked to the 8 stages of genocide, I don't think that people would feel the same way, because we, again, as a community and a society, said this will never happen again in the Holocaust, and we just need to be careful the way that we're following up.
Do you think that the media manipulates our minds more than the older generations? Because I know that the older generations, like our grandparents, that are very stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
So what do you think is worse, us following what our old generation say or what the media say?
With us, I think that it's your own person. Like, there's different people, like some people follow their elders as like respect and they're wiser, whereas some people think times have changed and so do you. So it depends really who you are and how you want to follow.
Luke, education is very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, in order for you to be able to have informed opinions about this.
Yeah.
What do you feel about your education, you know, in this matter? Because obviously you seem to be well informed about, you know, you mentioned the 8 stages of genocide. What are those 8 stages of genocide?
I know 2 of them because that's what I focused on in the speech. But the other ones are, I don't know the exact names, but it's like planning the genocide using like militants and other things, which is basically the stages, like taking the human rights away from people, things like that, which shouldn't be allowed really.
And how well informed do you feel about the current migrant crisis?
I think that the migrant crisis is very sugar-coated because when the mass migration started, we started to like try and stop this until, I don't know if any of you remember, but the picture of the boy, the Syrian boy, washed up on the shores. And it wasn't only the picture of the Syrian boy, it was our humanity washed up on the shores and our guilt, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for that. And then only after that picture we started to help.